All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening for the City Council Public Hearing Work Session. Have a few things on the agenda this evening, so we'll try to move as quickly as we can. Clerk will call the roll. Well, I'm sorry, clerk. Didn't mean to make you run for it.
Mayor Brian Mott.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimmy First.
Here.
Councilmember John Mesa.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Robson. Here. Councilmember Paul Stovall.
Here.
Councilmember Elmer Vai.
Present.
All right, if somebody could approve the agenda for me.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented by staff.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, do we have any announcements tonight, Kristen? Nothing? All right, we'll move on down to public hearings. First, I'll read the rules of order for public hearing zoning matters. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request the parcels of property which are subject to the zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone. Give your name and address to the city clerk, and please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we'll move into public hearings. First up this evening, 5509 New Peachtree Road.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Vanessa Goldman, Interim Planning Director. So the first case is at 5509 New Peachtree Road and 3942 West Hospital Avenue. It is a development of community impact. It involves the proposed construction of a 40,183 square foot, 5-story condominium building to include 22 units with structured parking to accommodate 28 parking spaces, as well as an accessory 1,475 square foot retail building with 20 permeable surface parking spaces. The project will include a 33-foot wide streetscape along New Peachtree Road and a 23-foot wide streetscape along West Hospital Avenue. This is the sign via the aerial, and these are some of the adjacent views surrounding the subject property. There are several applicant requests, 1 variance and 4 waiver requests. The first variance is to reduce the exterior building materials on multifamily building facades down from 60% to a range of 22.2% to 4.3% for brick and stone. The first waiver is to increase the width of the supplemental zone on New Peachtree Road from 15 to 18 feet. The second waiver is to allow exterior building materials on the rear of the primary building to not be primarily brick, glass, wood, stone, or stucco. The third waiver is to not provide a 5-foot wide landscape strip for a portion of the perimeter of the surface parking lot where it abuts the side or rear property line. And the fourth waiver is to not provide interparcel connection to the adjacent commercial parcels. This is the proposed site plan, and I'm just going to continue to scroll through. If we could advance the slide. These are the elevations for each side. This is the proposed accessory building for retail, and then the renderings of the multifamily. The staff recommendation is to approve waiver 1, 3, and 4 with the denial of variance 1 and waiver 2 with the following conditions. Please note that the conditions in bold refer to the DRB-related conditions. And I'm going to just hold these up for a minute so you can have enough time to read them. Thank you. That's the presentation. Staff will be available to answer any questions during the discussion period.
All right, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Good evening.
Hello, Chris Henshaw, actually the architect for this project. So I'm not necessarily here to speak in favor of it. Obviously, I'm in favor of it, but I am here to answer any questions that you guys might have throughout this process. And I will just state that I was away for I was out of the country for the Architectural Review Board meeting, but we did make changes. All of the requested changes that the Review Board had, we've addressed. And I believe there was a comment or a set of comment notes that hopefully was included in the packet that shows that how we addressed each of those comments or requests that the Design Review Board had, including the FAA, height issues, and everything else. So happy to answer questions. Is that up into one of your
Later.
meetings? So that's later, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the next item. And these items do come up later in the agenda for council to ask questions if they have any. Next up is 2750 Meadowmere East.
This request, as discussed, is 2750 Meadowmere East, and it is a proposed retention of a 6-foot-tall privacy wooden fence with minimal transparency. It is located approximately 5 feet from Meadowmere East, which is a private road maintained by the HOA. This is the site with views. And they are asking for 2 variances. The first is to allow construction of a 6-foot-tall fence in the street side yard, and the second is to allow a fence in the street side yard to not be 50% transparent. The fence is consistent in height and material with other fences in the neighborhood and aligns with the standards established by the Meadowood Homeowners Association. The original fence deteriorated due to age, and the reconstructed fence replicates the previous one. So we do recommend approval of variances 1 and 2 with the following condition.
Thank you. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up.
I have a presentation. Oh, okay. So this is when I do speak, right? Got it. All right. So thank you. I'm Jessica Franks. I'm the owner of the unit. And then we have some of our HOA members here if they want to speak after. But I prepared this presentation to kind of break down these components from my variance application. So I'll try not to be too redundant with what was just said. So this is what kind of go through. And then, so back in March of 2023, I hired a professional to remove my fence to replace with an exact replica. And it adhered to our HOA regulations and section 230-6 of the UDO with the 2 exceptions for the height of 6 feet on all sides and then the less than 50% transparency. And I attempted to bring a little humor into this, but just showing my due diligence. So as a first-time homeowner, I made a critical mistake, and although I received necessary approvals from my HOA, I did not realize that I needed an additional permit for an exact replica of the fence. So I listed some key dates here to give you a quick overview of our timeline and department touch points, and then I also included a comprehensive log of all correspondence dates, points of contact, departments, and actions taken in the appendix of this PowerPoint that I will not go through. So beginning in May of 2023, I received the initial notice of code violation, And then after corresponding, I received, corresponding with permitting services, received an email on July 5th. I'm going to skip through some of these. Let's see. And then, so I attended my court summons in March of 2024, of which I was not notified it was an arraignment. So since I wanted to speak to a judge, I returned in May to plead guilty, that my fence was still in violation of the 6-foot requirement in the UDO. And my HOA assured me that they would move forward with submitting this variance on behalf of the community, but then they weren't able to do that. So I got another citation in December of 2024. And then thanks to you guys, I was able to waive the fee to apply for the variance, so thank you again for that. Then moving forward as quickly as possible, I submitted my variance packet for approval 1 week after my March 10th pre-application meeting, and then had to push it to this meeting because of the 50% transparency. Anyway, here we are today. So, justification for compliance with review and approval criteria. So our property, or my property, is one of 52 separate condo units, each subject to provisions of the community declaration and in accordance with the bylaws that set a 6-foot fence height standard and less than 50% transparency for all units to be constructed in conformity with the architectural plans and specifications. So this photo is just of another property in the community to show consistency across fence height and transparency standards. So unnecessary hardship, a little more humor here for you. But rejecting the application of the existing UDO with 2 exceptions of the height and transparency would impose an undue burden by negatively impacting both the property value and neighborhood appearance. So without the initial reconstruction of the fence in 2023, the property would lack the necessary security and aesthetic cohesion that it provides today. So should we be required to meet the 4-foot height regulation, I would have no other options but to do it myself. I found a rented chainsaw option because I'm not able to fund any further out-of-pocket renovations. Peculiar conditions, less stupid photo. Again, should we be forced to remove 2 feet from the fence to comply with the 4-foot requirement, this would be the only unit in the community currently standing with the 4-foot fence and inconsistent links, as the other 2 sides would remain at 6 feet. And then same thing with the 50% transparency, this would be the only one with an incomplete fence. Conditions not resulting from property owner actions. So the previous fence deteriorated due to weather conditions and age. I just was saying it's an exact replica. No substantial detriment. The fence enhances the neighborhood's aesthetic while ensuring compliance with community HOA regulations. It does not obstruct visibility, impede pedestrian movement, or create safety concerns, but improves the overall visual appeal and security of the property and maintains uniformity with neighborhood character. And just to reinforce these benefits, I did a quick literature review about the evidence around this. I'm not going to go into it. I did a little dive into the benefits of symmetrical neighborhoods, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here given the expertise of urban planning and design in this room, and I understand that architectural diversity can also be appealing and beneficial, so this just pertains primarily to communities like ours with standards of uniformity. But basically just the growing body of evidence that points to the impacts of physical and built environments, that specific geometries have great influence over health and well-being. So I won't go through all of these. I know I'm probably boring most of the room, but we'll do site images. I know a few of these have already been shared, but this is an aerial view which shows the 6-foot fence on all sides, including rear yard fence and street yard fence, and indicates the less than 50% transparency. This photo is from the street side yard from the Meadowmere East street side yard fence. And then we have the rear side or rear yard fence facing the other direction from Meadowmere east of the street side yard, as well as the rear yard fence. So you can see where the 6-foot height fence would end and the 4-foot side would begin. And then a similar photo showing how the rear yard fence extends and connects to the neighbor's fences. And then this is one other photo from the street showing the adjacent neighbor's backyard fence, which is the same height as the street side yard fence. That would be inconsistent if we were to cut it. And then this is just a photo from the inside of the backyard showing just the fence and height. One more similar. So if all of that was too much, it sounds like it likely was, or I lost you amid my silly photos. I'm just asking as a first-time homeowner to trying to improve the appearance of my property and my community. And I regret that my knowledge was limited of the permitting process when this all started 2.5+ years ago. So I've learned a lot over the past 2 years and paid a good bit of money, but I understand that keeping our city clean and organized is an important function of this council, and I respect and appreciate your work to ensure our city remains safe, beautiful, and welcoming. So I'm requesting a variance on behalf of myself and my Meadowwood neighbors who may wish to reconstruct their fences in the future. So that's both the height requirement and the transparency level. So I think that is all I have today. Thank you.
Very much. Councilmember, how much time we have left?
We have 1 minute and 54 seconds.
We have almost 2 minutes. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone? It'd be hard to top. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this item? All right. Again, this will come up a little bit later in the agenda. Next up is 4166 Buford Highway.
This is at Plaza Fiesta at 4166. So the request is to install a 160 square foot non-electric wall sign that would be externally illuminated on the western building facade facing Claremont Road. The 25-acre subject property is an existing commercial lot with 2 road frontages along Buford Highway and Claremont Road. The applicant requests 1 variance to allow more than 2 facades to contain wall signage. Currently, 1 wall sign is located on the Claremont Road frontage, 2 wall signs are located on the Buford Highway frontage, and 2 wall signs are also located along Dresden Drive, which are currently blank. This is the sign that they are proposing. We do recommend denial of the variance request with the following recommended condition if it is approved.
All right. Very good. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
My name is Bernie Hens. I'm with Sensory Interactive. We are consultants to Plaza Fiesta with regard to their signage and displays, not only interior but exterior as well. Can I go backwards in this presentation?
You should be able to use the clicker. Just use this and click on.
Great. Thank you. As was pointed out in your staff review and report, this property is pretty peculiar and unusual in that it has 3 frontages. It has a frontage on Buford Highway, on Claremont, and on Dresden. It also, because of its growth amorphically from several distinct buildings, it's now one large building. As you can see by the site plan, it's an unusual shape and unusual orientations. Also, a strict application of the facade, of how you define a facade here, means this building has 38 facades in it. since every wall that's changes at a corner is a facade. I don't believe that was the intent of the ordinance when it was first put up. I believe it was really meant to address what are major frontages of a plane of the building as it faces a frontage. And if we look at this site plan, it really has about 6 or 7 frontages to the street's orientation. And the signs that we have put up in terms of their definition of billboard-type signs, they're all on one facade. They're on the Dresden Street side, facing north, basically, plan north. What we're asking is that we have the opportunity to put an additional billboard sign on the Claremont Street side, which is where we have view interruptions of the facility itself, both on the corner of the CVS building and also the private church property, which is heavily treed. So it blocks out a lot of our signage that's either on the building or on the street. The ability here to incorporate this is very, very important to the operation of this facility. As you know, Plaza Fiesta is a hub for the Hispanic community in North Atlanta area. It's an older facility. It's into a very heavy maintenance cycle, renew cycle. Needs a lot of work to keep it current. These billboards are revenue opportunities that allow ownership to keep rents to the vendors as low as possible to create more revenue that can be put back into the repair of the grounds of the building itself and other improvements. I believe that this request really accommodates the spirit and the intent of the existing ordinance, and that it's not an overreach of that requirement and that look that we'd like to achieve for this property.
Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
My name is Cristina Bolanos. I'm the property manager for Plaza Fiesta. And what I wanted to share from what Bernie said is that, yes, these are going to be additional facades that will create opportunities, commercial opportunities for the property to advertise there, so that it will generate a revenue. And as you can see in this side of the building that I'm showing, is not that busy as the other sides where we have as main entrances. The side on Claremont where we are proposing this entrance we've been trying to enhance that entrance for several years. We created another arch, we have some decals, we have the now famous I Love ATL, so we think that the signage will complement that entrance as well. And that side, actually, I don't know if this helped or caused, but the Claremont side, on that side of the property, it faces already Brookhaven. So we are challenged, but that will be for all the traffic that goes into Brookhaven. So that's why it's an addition to the property, it's an addition to advertise. And you see some items in these, it's not a screen, it's just a board. The Talpa yellow is just is an example, but it's not necessarily a Talpa sign. And the items that you see around the flowers, the columns, it was just to enhance. Actually, the reality of that wall is that is more plain. We only have one of the columns. If it helps the cause, we can add the items like the painting, because they told us maybe if we make it as part of a mural, it will help. But right now, that is almost a plain blue wall. We can decide with the city if the additional column to frame it and the flowers, the mural need to be painted, and if not, we can keep it more simple as it is right now. So that will be my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we'll move on down. 5621 Peachtree Boulevard.
So this is Ed Voiles Kia at 5621 and 5647 Peachtree Boulevard. The proposal is to combine two properties for the expansion of surface parking for inventory vehicles on approximately 4.17 acres that contains an existing car dealership. This will include the installation of a 14,944 square foot parking inventory lot that would add 88 spaces for a total of 198 parking spaces, not including the existing parking structure. There will also be the installation of 3 vehicle display pads and a 39.4 foot wide streetscape along Peachtree Boulevard. This is the site. Existing views. So I am going to have to run through the applicant request, so bear with me. There are 5 variances and 8 waiver requests. The first variance is to exceed the maximum number of off-street parking from 187 to 198. The second is to not use pervious paving alternatives that exceed 110% of the minimum required off-street parking. The third is to reduce the required bicycle parking from 10 to 4 spaces. The fourth variance is to locate off-street parking between the building and the street for inventory vehicles. Sorry, I'm still on this. And then the fifth variance is to not provide pedestrian circulation for a portion of the property. For the waivers, the first is to reduce the landscape zone from 14 to 5 feet. The second is to not locate street trees and pedestrian lights in the landscape zone. The third is to not locate the pedestrian lights 80 feet on center. The fourth is to not provide publicly accessible open space. The fifth is to exceed the maximum 12-foot candles in a commercial off-street parking lot. The sixth is to not provide a 5-foot wide grass strip with curbing for head-to-head parking. The seventh is to maintain the drive aisle between the building and the street. And the eighth waiver is to maintain the existing curb cut spacing of less than 369 feet. This is the proposed site plan. Staff recommends approval of variances 1 and 4, as well as waivers 1, 2, 3, and 7, with denial of variances 2, 3, and 5, along with denial of waivers 4, 5, 6, and 8, with the following condition.
Good. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this item?
Good evening. I'm Steve Ellis with Pro Building Systems, representing Ed Voiles Automotive Group this evening, and we have Jeff Elliott. He's the general manager of Ed Voiles Kia of Chamblee, who's here to answer any questions later, should there be any questions that I'm not able to answer myself. So just a little brief history on the property. We brought this particular project before council in 2013 for the original 3.3 acres. It's the L-shaped portion of the property, the unhighlighted portion there, to be developed as the Kia dealership back then was approved by council. Some of these variances and waivers, and I'll kind of hit them really quickly one by one, are just a result of what's there, and I'll kind of get to that here in a second. Since 2013, the Kia brand has grown significantly. You see a lot more Kias on the road now than you used to. The product's great. So has brought the need forth to Ed Voiles Kia to have this additional inventory storage, as well as to expand their service up under the existing parking deck, which doesn't really require any variances, so that's not why it's in this particular package. So the Wendy's parcel, we'll call it the Wendy's parcel. The parcel that is under contract to be purchased by Ed Voiles Kia is 1.4 acres. You can see here in the graphic, it will complete the rectangle. You know, it's an L-shaped property. It completes the rectangle. It makes sense to us, as well as to Ed Boyles, that combining these parcels would be a great addition to their property, but it just kind of makes sense from a geometry standpoint to do that. Another interesting piece about that property, that is the southernmost parcel on the east side of Peachtree Boulevard that is Zone CC, that is the only zoning, I guess, except for light industrial. That is the only zoning on Peachtree Boulevard that allows for automotive use. When you get to the south of this property, it goes to the city center PUD. Everything else to the south on both sides is VC. So many years ago, there were some conversations, hey, if Wendy's ever actually goes out of business, is there the opportunity for Ed Boyles to consume this property because of that fact? I know, and you guys all know, there's limited CC property in the automotive corridor that's available. A couple of positives that we think about this development. One is this proposal, it would clean up a legacy fast food restaurant development that is currently out of business. I think Wendy's went out of business a few months ago, so it's currently unoccupied. You'll see now there are 3 drive cuts existing, the one for the Ed Boyles Kia property, and there's 2 for Wendy's. They were kind of, I guess, one way because of the QSR configuration. We are proposing to remove or eliminate one of those drive cuts currently, so it would go from 3 to 2. It would meet the current stormwater regulations. We understand in a redevelopment project, there's a very small kind of detention, we'll call it depression, pond would be a strong word, in the front of the Kia property now that doesn't meet any of the regulations, but obviously in the redevelopment project, we'd have to meet all the state regulations for the Blue Book, as well as water quality, channel protection, detention, all of those things. We would also meet all of the landscaping requirements defined in the ordinance, as well as that little piece of streetscape that's not there and sidewalk that's not there. It will complete that. That'll make a pretty significant continuous run of the streetscape along Peachtree Boulevard, because right now there's a break from the tire store, between the tire store and the Kia dealership. So that being said, I just want to kind of hit each variance request. While it sounds like a lot of variances and a lot of waivers for something of this magnitude, first I'd like to say 4 of the 5 variances and 5 of the waivers that we're requesting tonight have been consistently approved by council on pretty much all of the automotive projects that we've had before you in the past. So I'll just kind of hit one by one. The first one, the variance to exceed the maximum number of off-street parking spaces. It's automotive, it's inventory. The ordinance doesn't really make a provision for that, so we consistently need to ask for that variance. Second, with the pervious paving alternative, we're not against pervious paving, but this is vehicle inventory, so the cars sit there for a longer period of time than typical, and that we just find that pervious paving doesn't function very well in that configuration or in that process. But again, we're not against pervious paving; it just doesn't really work well in that environment. Reduce the number of bicycle parking spaces from 10 to 4. I think that may have been a little miscommunication. I was under the impression that 4 met the ordinance. 10 seems excessive. There's a few to the south on the tire store. There's a few to the north on Peachtree on Hennessy Ford. If council deems they don't want to support that, I guess we could put the 10 bicycle spaces in front. Locate the off-street parking between the building and the street. That was approved originally with the Kia store, so that's a configuration that's there now. I think the way staff worded it was to maintain that. And also just the configuration of the property, the way that it's a wedge shape, there's more property the farther south you go in front of the building. And if you struck a line straight down, it would effectively deem half of that property undevelopable. But I believe that the majority of the nature of this request is because that the road is there now. It was approved previously on the main parcel. We can combine them. It needs to carry over to the new parcel. The pedestrian circulation through the property. We do have pedestrian circulation currently in place. You can see on the diagram in front of you from all of the customer parking spaces. These are inventory parking spaces, and we don't want to encourage customers walking around through the inventory parking without an escort from someone at the dealership. The first three waivers, those are a result of existing conditions. So the first one, reduce the landscape zone from 14 to 5 feet. You can see where the decel lane is currently on the existing Kia dealership. It compresses the landscape zone down to 5 feet right in front of the existing sidewalk. So working with staff, we realized that we needed to ask for that variance just to keep that in place. The next are the waivers. The next two waivers are, it says to not locate street trees and pedestrian lights in the landscape zone. The reason being, back in 2013, the code was different than it is now when it comes to streetscape. In this configuration currently, in front of the existing Kia dealership, the street trees and the pedestrian lights are behind the sidewalk, not in front, not between the road and the sidewalk as the code is now. It's been modified since 2013. So we thought it made the most sense for our new portion of streetscape to match the existing portion so that at the end of the day, the property is homogeneous with the streetscape. So we're not asking to not put the street lights and the pedestrian lights, we're just asking to put them behind the sidewalk, which is technically outside of the landscape zone. To not locate the pedestrian lights 80 feet on center, I think there is a light, I know there is a light currently there, and if we did 80 feet on center, it kind of messed up the tree, so one is like 76 feet instead of 80. The others are 80, so we're asking for that waiver because of that reason. Number 4, the publicly accessible open space. This is high security, high value inventory storage. Public accessible open space in that environment doesn't really work well, so we're asking for your consideration on that variance. We do meet the amount of open space. We're just asking for it not to be deemed publicly accessible when they are not open. The maximum foot candles to exceed 12 foot candles in off-street parking. We typically ask for that in an automotive environment because it is some vehicles and it's security and they want to have the security level for the cameras to be able to pick up the vehicles in the evening should there be any theft. And so we did present a photometric plan in our package, and we would meet that photometric plan if you guys are so kind as to grant that variance or that waiver. Number 6, the 5-foot landscape strip between head-to-head parking. You can see in this configuration, if we did that for the 3 rows of parking, it would effectively eliminate a full row of parking, which would cut about 30 parking spaces out of this proposal. And at that point, it almost makes the project not viable. And this, as well as trees and things with the new vehicles, not kind of agreeing. So we are doing the end cap islands. We're meeting the regulation on all the other landscape requirements. We're just asking for the head-to-head, the 5-foot landscape between those 3 runs of head-to-head parking to be alleviated.
Mr. Mayor, we're at 10 minutes.
We're at 10 minutes, okay. The last 2, to maintain the drive aisle between the building and the street, we talked
Steve,
about that.
does council wish to extend for a minute?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay,
1
perfect,
minute.
thanks. I'll be done in less than a minute. And then the last one is 2 curb cuts less than 369 feet. Those 2 curb cuts are existing. We understand we'd have to get GDOT approval on that. It's a GDOT road, but it is outside of the requirements of the regulation. So for City of Chamblee, we're just asking for consideration on that. And we appreciate your consideration on the project. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. All right. 30 seconds left.
He did that in 18 seconds.
All right, so about 40 seconds left. Does anybody else wishes to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this item? All right, seeing none, we will move out of the public hearing portion and through the agenda. First up this evening, under old business, we had an appeal of an administrative decision for 2080 Claremont Terrace and 2342 Wood Acres Road. We heard this previously, and we will need to take action on that tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly mention that you guys heard an appeal for an administrative decision of the Planning and Development Director on a plat application back in May. Per our ordinance, in the appeal process, you have 60 days to provide that decision, which means you guys will need to vote on this item tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to uphold the decision of the Planning and Development Director in the matter related to 2342 Wood Acres Road.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to uphold the decision as stated by Councilmember Vythe. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor? And that is unanimous. All right, under the minutes this evening, we have five meetings in June. Did anybody see anything that needed to be changed on any of those sets of minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll move on down. We have ordinance to annex. This is in regards to 2816, 2820, 2822, and 2824 Chamblee Tucker Road into the city of Chamblee.
This will be second read for Tuesday.
Okay, very good. And we, I guess that both go together. So that will take us down to staff action items. And first up is the 2025 Q2 budget amendment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Daria Kriskus. I'm the Budget and Strategy Manager. We have a quick budget amendment tonight, and as you know, we typically do this on a quarterly basis. In this case, the main thing going on here, we have the Safe Streets for All grant that we received, which we're using for the Chamblee Safety Action Plan. During the budget process, there was a mistake. We did fund a $60,000 match for the grant, which is great, but we didn't actually reflect the grant itself in the budget. So this is partially to fix that. And the other thing that this budget amendment is doing is moving the $60,000 match out of the Public Works in the general fund and putting it in the multiple grants fund to consolidate the full budget of $300,000. If we go to the next slide, you'll see here there's $60,000 that's being moved from professional services into a transfer, and then down at the bottom you'll see the other $240,000 for the grant. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Next up is the North Metro SWAT Equipment Vehicle MOU.
I believe Chief Dieppe is going to come up here and present this item.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. This request is because we have a current MOU with the North Metro SWAT component between us, Brookhaven, Dunwoody, and Doraville. They want to purchase an equipment vehicle to move the equipment that is used in North Metro SWAT. In order to purchase the vehicle, we need an MOU, and we're requesting permission for the city manager to be able to sign the MOU memorandum of understanding to allow us to pay our prorated portion of that vehicle.
Okay. Any questions from council?
I'll just add that this item is budgeted for, so it's not new.
Okay. All right, questions, council? Nothing? Thank you, Chief. And this will circle us back down to our hearing items. First up is 5509 New Peachtree Road. Questions from council on this item? Anything?
I have a quick question. I guess it would be for Chris. Is this Chris's project, or is this the other? I had this backwards.
This is Chris.
So the packet didn't really reflect it, and we talked about it a little bit, but the accessory building, has no design really at this time because it's not really determined who the user would be.
Correct. It was just a very initial temp design, and I want to apologize. We do our meetings in Doraville backwards from what you guys, so I didn't realize sort of the dog and pony show came first. Otherwise, I would have been a little bit more elaborate in what I was saying, so I apologize for that. But yes, the small secondary building, it doesn't have a tenant. We don't have a specific use for it yet other than a retail component. It wouldn't necessarily be a restaurant because parking constraints. So it was just a small parcel that a small retail space could go into.
And am I correct in assuming that when and if that building design is decided upon or brought forward, that would be like an amendment or a modification to this development of community impact?
The goal for that building would also meet all the standards without requiring any variances for that.
I didn't know, since we weren't actually approving a design, it's
I'm gonna defer to Gabrielle on this, but I don't believe if there's nothing that triggers it to come back in front of you, then you wouldn't see it again, but.
You can go through, I don't know where it is. That's the one. That was the-
I don't know where all the other slides are. Can we want to show there actually is an elevation for the retail, the accessory building.
It's not in the rendering, but there is.
So that would be the expectation it is submitted.
That answered my question. Then if it's in there, and I'll have a chance to review it before Tuesday, then.
There it is. It's a small, mid-century, modern-looking building that pulls a lot of the aesthetics, same materials, similar proportions to the other building. It's just a 1,500 square foot, 1,600 square foot accessory structure.
That picture certainly explains why I didn't notice it before.
So you're requesting a variance from section 240-13B3E1 to reduce exterior building materials and facades for a multifamily building from minimum 6% brick to a range of 22.2 and 4.3. That's a huge delta. Why?
So the rendering shows this the best. So this is the front and the right side of the building. The goal is to have the first 2 floors of the building. Your code is written so that you can't have any residential units on the first floor of a multi-use building within 100 feet of the street. So the first 100 feet is taken up by, we're proposing a retail or a restaurant space, 2-story glass box. You have code requiring a certain amount of fenestration for the building. We decided to overdo the fenestration on this. It's a jewel box, so you get you can see here it is, this is the front and then the left side of the building. So the right side of this rendering is that 2-story box. The rest of that space is a covered public plaza that could be used for seating for the restaurant or retail space, as well as residents or other people. So the idea is that there is a lot of brick. It's just pushed further back in the facade. So it doesn't necessarily, the calculation isn't met because of where the front plane is and that covered public plaza is pushed so far back. So the calculations per your standards are off for this facade, but we meet all the glazing requirements and everything else. The big area of concern would be the back of the building here, and we have a lot of glass. I don't know if there's not a better view of the back of the building. There's just a lot of glass on the back of the building, and as an architect, I hate suspending brick above glass when there's a lot of glass. Just aesthetically, it feels a little heavy. And so I was really trying to emphasize the verticality of the structure here. We have a lot of tall floor-to-ceiling windows, so you can see that these facades really stretch vertically. So when you start infilling those with brick, it feels very applied as opposed to intentional. So there is quite a bit of brick on the building, but there's also so much glass that in order for us to replace to meet your brick requirements, I'd actually have to peel back on the amount of glass we put in. Either that or replace the remaining materials with exclusively brick or stone. And again, I hate hanging brick and stone 5-6 stories off the ground. So it feels hard to have that above you.
So Ms. Goldman, what's the rationale for the denial of that waiver?
Will you please repeat the question? I'm sorry.
The waiver that we're just speaking of?
Yes.
The variance, excuse me. My apologies. What was the rationale for the denial? It was the building materials and facades for multifamily buildings from minimum of 6% brick to the requesting 22.2 and 4.3.
It was a range, yes, depending on the facade. So it was a reduction anywhere from 4.3% to 22.2 versus 60.
So what was the reason for the denial from staff?
Because this is really the first building in that area. It's a redevelopment. It's a very significant building. It's clearly a development of community impact. So the thought here is that we want to set the standard, and the standard is outlined in the code. So we did not see a reason to support a variance to the exterior material when this is the first building of its type for that area.
Thank you.
I might ask, I'm not sure with your processes, but I know you have the ability to waive first read. You also have the ability to let us come back either a week or a month from now. Or I don't know if you guys would be making a decision tonight, or is that the decisions would be made?
Decision be made Tuesday,
So next week or a month from next week?
if we decide to defer.
Okay. If you do have issues with materiality, not the scope of the project, but smaller items like that, I would ask, more than happy to do some re-renderings. This building is boutique. It's a high level of finishes. We haven't, set our price points yet based on, current market conditions are quite fluctuating within the construction industry. But the goal here is these are, for sale units, minimum square footage of, I think it's 1,200 square feet for a one-bedroom, and they go up from there, up to a three-bedroom, three-bath, rooftop amenities. So, it's a bespoke boutique building. The glass was more important to me than the brick in this particular project, but I can look at.
And I agree with you. I like the amount of glass, and I wouldn't want to lose any glass to meet a brick requirement. I mean, I think the intent of that is to have the brick requirement to avoid the cheapening or lessening of the thing. So I don't feel like your glass makes the building look cheaper, and I wouldn't want to think it had the glass closed up. We obviously like glass in this building, so anyway, that's just my personal opinion though. But we'll let you know.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, actually, for our staff, I don't see anything in the packet regarding the DRB items and how Chris said they had responded to those. I don't see those in our packet, though.
I'll add that those were submitted this week, so they didn't make it into your packet because we had already published the agenda, but I did email them to you this evening.
We have paper copies we can
Okay.
distribute, just so you can take them with you if you wish.
If it's emailed, that's all I need. Thank you.
Any other questions?
From the DRB, they suggested adding soundproofing to it. I know it's made of steel and concrete, so you can talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so the goal for this particular building, it's a commercial style construction. It'll be sprinklered, and it'll also have concrete construction. Obviously, glass is glass. You put low E, two-pane thermally insulated, and you caulk and you seal them as best you can. But the building itself will be highly vibration proof, and as Chambly well knows, you live in living in Doraville, you live in the flight path of an airport. You're buying in the flight path of an airport. I won't say buyer beware, but it's just known that that's there. That being said, the building itself is designed to be as quiet as possible, given the amount of glass that we're putting in the structure. The rooftop amenity obviously won't be soundproof. It's an open rooftop amenity, but the units themselves should be. Again, we're trying to set a very high standard of finishes, so the last thing you need is a rattly, shaky building when somebody's coming through to buy $1 million unit. So,
And there are thermal glass techniques where I think they put a membrane in between the glass panels that somehow lessen the sound because it's another, and I guess being flexible, it doesn't transfer the solid pieces of glass. But they're techniques, they're products out there. I know that, but that's for. It already says in there that you're going to do that work with the development department to explore some of those sound deadening things. So,
yeah, being a steel frame building, a concrete frame building with steel walls, really it's the vibrations from trains and planes is going to be the biggest issue, and by nature of the building materials and construction, that'll alleviate a vast majority of any issues you have. And I mean, I don't know how up to date you guys are on, but like Windows technology is evolving all the time, and even just modern standardized windows they have a bazillion gaskets and turns, and the way they lock together, they're just so much better built than just a piece of wood with some caulk and and a piece of glass. So they're significantly better than they were. And again, being a boutique bespoke building, we can't cheap out on any given areas. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to sell the units. So. And we did submit the paperwork to the FAA, actually online, but I provided a paper copy in the email. My wife was in the hospital for 3 days, so I literally got it in right under the window, but it was, she's fine, but it was a tough week to get work done, so I apologize for the short notice on that.
I would just add that I've been in the seat for 3 years, 7 months since the first for sale condos I've seen since I've been up here. So if any developers out there say it can't be done,
It's challenging. We're going to, current market conditions, you know, with the construction industry and material availability, but we're trying to push the envelope and set a pretty high bar here, so.
All right, any other questions?
I just have one. I hope you know the answer to this. Is this building pretty much directly under the takeoff?
It's slightly askew, but it is close to the, I mean, I'm trying to think of the,
in my experience, it's not directly.
yeah, it'd be a little, we're further northwest than the DeKalb Animal Shelter, which is directly in the flight path. So you're a little further over from that. I don't think you'll be getting, I mean, there might be 1 or 2 airplanes coming in a less direct route, but I think a majority of the traffic is coming in slightly askew to it. It's,
Just really more out of curiosity than anything.
yeah, the FAA, we have the same challenges in Doraville, so. Any other questions you might have?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right, that takes us down to 2750 Meadowmere East, the most famous fence in the city of Shanklin.
Yeah, I'll just start with this, is saying the mayor, myself, and Councilman Stovall had a chance to go to the HOA meeting, last month, I believe it was, and one of the big topics was your fence. And our code does not do a great job with townhome communities that have the exact, 52 units to be exact, and it's difficult. And I apologize that you had to go through 2 years of this. We tried to make it right by waiving the fee. Unfortunately, it's just our code does not take this into account. And every time the fence will have to be done there, this will have to be done. People will have to come in and get a waiver. But tell me you went to grad school without telling me you went to grad school when you mentioned a lit review during a PowerPoint presentation.
All right, questions from council?
Definitely one of the most original presentations that we've had. I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but I've been doing this for 11 and a half years, so almost 12, so this is definitely one of the more original ones. Don't know if I ever had a cat in a part of the presentation, cat photo, but anyway.
The only other thing that I want to say is that, and I completely agree with you, Jimmy, Mr. First, that our code never anticipated this. Kind of was written before we annexed the area.
Our code does a really good job of single-family detached.
Yes.
This is not that.
Yeah. And one of the things that it's like there's not going to be an answer, so I'm not really asking for an answer. While you may have visual face-on, no visibility, from both side views, you've got wonderful visibility and airflow too, by the way, which is really kind of necessary when people put in fences. If you put a solid fence in that doesn't have any way for air to get through, you're really creating a microclimate that is not beneficial to your yard. So I think that it's a minor issue that is kind of like, okay, we can toe the line right down the darn middle, or we can say, well, wait a minute, there is some visibility here, and in your case, there is. So I wanted to say that. I wanted to add that to what Jim had already said.
All right. Did anybody have any questions?
I can frame my statement in the form of a question.
All right.
I was going to say, at least, do you think that you've created a roadmap for the next person that comes along in this? I think you have.
So you're asking her, who's your agent? Who's your producer?
Anyway.
You want to come up?
So you were saying that whoever, subsequent community members who want to put up a fence would still need to go through this variant, like file the variance and go through this whole 2.5-year process, or?
Hopefully it won't be
because
2.5 years.
Because I don't think we're
I
gonna.
think you're setting the standard for how not to go through a 2-year process on
Thank you.
this. But there, we have had conversations about how we could do this in bulk. I don't know the solution to that because there is law, the UDO is the laws of the land. So we would have to come up with something creative. I'm not saying that is the easiest path, is everybody would have to come up and ask for a variance and come in front of us. But there is, I spoke with Ms. Goldman yesterday about this, and we're working on something that maybe we could do a bulk variance for the community. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's even possible, but it's a discussion point.
Okay.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I understand that
Thank you.
variances apply to the specific property. So you own a single piece of property of all the units in there. So every single property has its own requirements.
Right.
So your next door neighbor isn't going to be covered by this variance because it only applies to your property. You're asking for a variance for your specific situation. It isn't a blanket coverage.
Right. Well, the way I filed it was actually the HOA was the property owner because it's the shared space that's my outside. I only own to my condo wall, or so
Then
that
that's going to
property
raise
is
a whole other set of
actually.
questions that we have to discuss.
And that's what we have to discuss with Ms. Goldman, what
Okay.
could potentially be done on that, because right now we don't know the answer.
Right, okay,
We got to do some research.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Very unique situation. All right, 4166 Buford Highway. This is Plaza Fiesta. Any questions for the applicant?
So during the presentation, I heard that there's 2 signs on Dresden that are blank. What are those signs being used for today? Please come to the podium. Okay. Can you please come to the podium? The lectern. It's not podium, is it?
Sorry about that. There's actually 3 signs on 2 facades that are all in the same frontage facing Dresden. Those have no advertising or anything on them yet because they haven't been sold. What we're asking for is to understand that the building, despite a strict application of the ordinance, really only has about 6 sides to it, and that we've used up all of our signage allotment on one side of the building that's really one plane and one frontage. So we want to offer the consideration that the intent of this is that there weren't several facades that are right next to each other and they happen to be just out of plane from each other, so they qualify as 2 facades. So what we're trying to say is that, where we're asking for the 4th sign is on another facade, and to consider the facade that's facing Dresden as one holistic facade as opposed to 2.
So the idea for the Dresden signs is to sell at one point. Had they ever been sold previously?
They're new, they're brand new. They just went up.
Okay.
They were permitted back earlier this year and they just were installed.
Okay.
So the only thing we're talking about is this one spot, right, that showed the picture and it
Right.
had the,
That's it.
so, and then, can you come up? You kind of touched upon the stylizing or the look of that sign, and that's the thing that jumped out at, not so much whether it was a sign or not a sign, but it kind of looked like it took away from the other art that's on the wall, and I was just wondering if there's, you mentioned something about it blending better, but I didn't.
The wall
So
right
you
now-
saw, I think you saw some of the things that I saw. It doesn't really kind of doesn't.
Yes, part of understand the ordinance is not to have the facades too busy. And yes, Plaza is busy, that's what we are. And in the pictures that we see shows additional items as a mural with flowers and columns in order to make it blend in. But currently that wall is just blue, so we have that option to add those items or remove the items if the view is too crowded already. So, and that's just or muralists doing paint, so it's,
I definitely not asking you to remove any existing items. I just was wondering how to make the new sign blend better with the existing facade or design or
right,
elements of the
yeah,
building.
we can include those items in order
Yes,
to
but
make
that's,
it blend.
that's the only thing that jumped out at me on this.
Other questions? All right. 5621 Peachtree Boulevard. Any questions for the applicant on this item? This is Kia.
Yeah, I had a question, a couple of them actually. On the, yeah, come on up, please.
Come on up, Steve.
On the southern end there, on your drawing, there are a lot of those contour lines really close together.
Correct.
Which way does that? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, well, you can barely see it in the TV, on the TV.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That slopes up. That's an incline up.
okay, up towards the residential, kind of to the south, okay.
Correct, yeah. Those are actually zoned NC2, but yeah.
So what kind of retaining wall does that look like for the parking spots along that edge?
Yeah, well, we haven't done the complete engineering yet, but there would be some amount of retaining wall at the end of those spaces that would be, you could not see from the NC2 zoning that you could see from the interior of the property. And there's a retaining wall currently along the front of the Kia dealership that wraps around the corner, that goes almost to the entrance, and we would just match that exact same material so that the entire development's.
It was more of a height thing, because that looks, that many, I don't know what the elevation change per line.
According to the drawing, it's about
Yeah.
15 feet.
About a 15-foot, okay. And how big's our biggest retaining wall? How? 8 feet, okay, all right, that's it, thank you.
Yeah, but, okay. We'd slope the parking lot up from where we start to there, so it wouldn't really be 15 feet.
It wouldn't be just,
right?
okay.
The ground plane would be higher than the existing ground plane when you get to the contours.
All right, any other questions from council?
Mr. Ellis, how do you feel about adding dark sky to this project?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
And the second piece is for Ms. Goldman. You have recommended denial from the public accessibility. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, there were several waivers that we felt, that being one. So we're looking at Peachtree Boulevard as providing streetscape amenities, open space, bicycle parking, impervious. We see this all bundled together to ensure that we understand that this is an inventory lot, and we have approved variances so they can have an expansion of that inventory. But we were concerned with moving forward with anything that might not, again, bring it up to code for pedestrian circulation, for anything tied to what we see as any project needing to contribute to streetscape requirements, impervious requirements, and pedestrian accessibility requirements, and that includes the open space. So we saw that bundled together.
Yes.
Yeah, we are including the streetscape, the sidewalk. I believe there is a bench, the bench and the trash receptacle and all the things that are required in the streetscape are being provided in this proposal within the streetscape. We're just asking that the public open space within our property boundary around the cars not be deemed publicly accessible, because the code requires that to be an easement granted to the city from the property owner, meaning that anybody can mill around through the vehicle inventory when the dealership wasn't open. But we are not asking for any relief from the streetscape, the sidewalk, the public amenities, the bike racks, the benches, and all those things that are required.
So my question is the curb cut at the bottom of the screen, what, if it's not a publicly accessible lot, or not supposed to be, or not, why do you have an entry there, and why does the entry that's at the other side of this lot that's currently servicing not enough? Or is there GDOT reasons, or is it just seems like that's an opportunity to close a curb cut there?
Well, we are closing one, and the reason for that one is to make the accessibility for the car carriers to live in the vehicles far easier to get off Peachtree Boulevard, to stop there, deliver the cars, and get off the property. It would be very difficult for a tractor trailer to turn around on that property with only that single entrance.
Well, car carriers unloading on Peachtree Boulevard is a consideration that.
We're trying to eliminate that.
And so, yeah, I'm not gonna be happy if I don't close this curb cut and I see cars being unloaded in the right of way. So it's,
Correct.
you know, if that's the scenario you're setting up, we're gonna,
Correct.
you know.
We're working to
But yes,
alleviate.
because I would love that to be closed up, but I think I want cars carriers off Peachtree Boulevard more,
Agreed.
so.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, this will take us down to mayor and council items. We have Chang versus the City of Milton, multi-city amicus brief resolution. This is the next step in supporting the City of Milton in their case with the Georgia Supreme Court.
Yes, Mayor. So earlier this year, the council passed a similar resolution for an amicus brief filing for multi-city amicus brief related to Chang versus the City of Milton. That case has been accepted by the Georgia Supreme Court, so they will hear it later this year. And so we are going through the process again as part of a multi-city amicus brief filing, and you all are being asked to pass another resolution as part of that process.
Any questions on that item? All right. Nothing else under mayor and council this evening. Good job. We are down to,
Is there a little bit of sarcasm in there, Mr. Mayor?
we are down to public comments. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk, limit remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by council. Not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once and no one can speak more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, I will open it up to public comment. Anyone here tonight wishing to address council on any item?
I just want to congratulate you guys on having a fun presentation for a 2-year fence variance. We have the same exact problem in our city, so if you come up with a solution, you let us know. So we don't have to go through the same thing again and again and again. So good luck with that. It's not fun.
Thank you, sir.
Great presentation.
Anyone else wishing to address council this evening? All right. Do we have executive session tonight?
We do, briefly.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't say
Mr.
that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session for matters related to personnel.
Second.
Motion and a second to enter an executive session. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Folks, we'll be back at some point.
Sorry. All in favor? Nice job.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to exit executive session.
Second.
A motion and a second to exit executive session. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous, and we're out.